Imagine if you were able to watch your great grandparents tell stories from their lives. What made them laugh? What moved them? How they responded to adversity and triumph? And what impacted their existence? That would be a treasure. Now you can offer that gift to your loved ones. Hello, I'm Dennis Tardon. For more than 45 years, I've been a professional interviewer documenting the lives and times of hundreds of people. I will guide you or your family member through the important stories of your lives using my unique interviewing skills. I'm now offering my legacy interviews worldwide via Zoom from the comfort of you or your loved one's own home. All you need is a webcam, and I will do the rest. Contact me today to schedule your legacy interview.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Outside the Lines, program where we talk about humans and humanity and the things that define us, and sometimes the things we think define us. On this program, we're going to talk about education. So, what is education? What does that mean? Well, to me, it's a three-step process. First, you acquire knowledge. Second, you retain that knowledge. And third, you apply that knowledge. Now, it's also, we can also condense all three of these things into one word, one thing, and that is learning. And learning is something that we do throughout our entire lives. As a matter of fact, most of the things that we talked about during this program, or on this program rather, right from the beginning up until now, has been about how we learn things. Because there are certain things, those things that I say define us or we think define us, aren't things that we are just born knowing. It's things that we learn as we go through life, whether it's language, whether it's learning about our sexuality, whether it's about learning about our race, religion, all those things are things that we learn throughout life. And the way we learn are there's different ways. One way is simply to live, to experience life, to experience things. Another way, of course, the one we probably think of when we think of education, is through teaching, is through going to school. I mean, most of us spend the first 18 years of our lives or so going to school, from pre-K to kindergarten, all the way up to 12th grade, high school, and some of us even move on to college and to universities. So, to talk about education, here's somebody that is very educated herself, and she is always my queen of hair hats, Miss Renee Yaworski.
Thank you, Manny. I love that introduction. That was excellent.
Thank you, thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Education is
So
something that's very important to me. And of course, my mother's a
yes.
professor. So I grew up with, in her classes and touring all of the research conferences that she went to. So it was really instilled in me in a very early age that scholarship, both academic and even life experience, is something that should be at the forefront of our lives and our consciousness.
Hmm.
It's something that to me was it was never an option to opt out. You know, I
Right.
always had to
Yeah.
be educated, but to her credit, she also truly understood that some of the best education that you get might not be in a traditional classroom. So I
Right.
was always free to experiment and to sort of think outside the box as well. And then also the value of institutionalized learning. So I've been able to see both sides of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And you mean outside the lines?
Right. I was like, of course, I missed that opportunity. How could I
Oh.
possibly miss that
Oh.
opportunity? Thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. You froze there for a second, so I was wondering, like, oh, did I
I
miss
was really
something?
mad at you. That was my anger coming through.
Oh, I see. I see.
Just
Okay.
kidding.
Well, to talk about education and somebody who is on the front lines of this very issue, I'd like to introduce our special guest right now. She is a working teacher, uh, and this is Ms. Arlene Perez.
Hello.
Hello, Arlene. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, and you?
No, not too bad. Not too bad. Here we are talking about education. So, what exactly is your field? What do you teach?
I teach RLA, which is Reading Language Arts, or it used to be formerly called English. This year, I'm specifically teaching English 4 and a House Bill EOC English course.
Okay, and you teach high school, right?
Yes, sir. I've been teaching high school for 21 years.
Okay, well, that was my
Wow.
next question.
God bless you. That's a really, that's a rewarding and challenging age group is going to be my guess.
Yes, I originally started off with freshmen, but I've been teaching seniors now since the year of the pandemic, 2019.
Okay, and so you are getting them ready to go out into the world, to take over
Yes.
the world, um, and I assume a lot of them uh, wind up going to college.
Some of them will go to college. Some of them will go to trade school, some type of post-secondary. Some of them are planning, well, graduate with certifications in something already, and they'll be going right into the workforce. This year, it's been all about helping them find their and. What is next? What comes after high school?
Excellent. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't think about. They don't stop and think about, okay, well, high school's over. Now we're free to do whatever. Uh, and of course, there are parents who expect you to follow into, follow on into college, university, get those degrees. And there's others who, for one reason or another, they can't afford it or whatever reason, decide, well, no, you really need to get into the workforce, that sort of thing. Um, so how did you get into teaching? Did you always know you wanted to be a teacher, or
It
what
was
happened?
one of three things I always wanted to be. It was either a teacher, a lawyer, or an actress anyway. But I firmly believe from my background, neither of my parents graduated high school.
Mhm.
But my mom was real big on reading. She did say, Arlene, you need to make sure you are self-sufficient. You don't need to rely on anyone to take care of you, especially a man. And I took what she said and I really believed it. And she was avid to reading to us every single night. So I knew that education was the way out of poverty, and we lived in poverty. And so I decided early on that I was going to apply myself. In fact, I graduated from high school in the top 10%. And I went to college because I wanted to be self-sufficient.
Mhm.
So,
Excellent. Yeah, yeah.
and the reason I chose education specifically, though, is I knew there was other students like me, who lived in poverty that just needed to hear that there is a way out of
Mhm.
poverty. And I wanted to be that mentor for them.
Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't really understand that education isn't just reading and writing and learning those things. I mean, they're obviously they're important
Mm.
to be able to do those things in our society, but that it has a larger impact on your life, larger meaning.
Yes,
You know,
most definitely. I agree.
yeah. So good for you. Um, so you said you've been teaching high school. Has it been always high school for those 21 years?
Yes, definitely always high school. I actually was originally going to teach elementary ed, but one of the things when you're going through college, especially within the first year or so, they have you do all these observations. And I did observations for elementary classrooms, junior high classrooms, high school classrooms. And I decided really quickly, even though I'm really good with small children, that I did not want to worry about bodily fluids.
Right. Yeah.
It's one thing to do it for your own children, but it's another to do it for
Somebody
25
else's.
other children every year.
Right.
Yeah, and I just didn't want to deal with that. And I also um, wanted to have more meaningful conversations, I guess was a good way to put it. But
Yeah.
yes, I definitely did not want to deal with bodily fluids.
Well, I guess that's the nice thing about high school students is they're mostly potty trained and housebroken. So
Exactly.
you always have those few that, it's like, yeah, I had the wonderful experience of teaching middle school or junior high, as they used to call it. Uh, and I say wonderful in a very sarcastic way.
I
It
feel
was
you. Did
it,
originally I did originally serve as a para at Mitchell Guidance Center, and it was on the junior high floor. So
mhm.
I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah. That's a rough age, I think, you know what, we just need to lock them up from between 13 and 16, put them in a camp somewhere, and then let them come back into society, because that age is just, it's ridiculous. It's
I
that's
feel you.
worse than the elementary school, but
When my own 6 children got to junior high age, all of a sudden it was like, who are you?
right, exactly. It's
And
like
then
a
when they got into
switch.
high school, it's like, oh, there you are.
Right. It's like a switch goes off, and it's like,
Exactly. I'm like kind of sad because my grandchildren's going to get there eventually.
mhm. Yeah, and you have to go through it all again.
Yes.
Yeah. So how many classes do you teach right now?
I have 7. We have 8 periods, and one of them is my conference period, and 7 of them I teach.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is probably a hard question, but by in general, are the kids pretty good? Do they mind you? Do they pay attention? Are they learning?
I actually don't have very many issues with classroom management. I have a routine, and people like routines.
Hmm.
It's comforting, I think, when you know what to expect. And even when I had freshmen, because I had freshmen for a very barely wrote any referrals, and
Hmm.
last year I didn't write but one, and I haven't written one this year yet. So I don't really have a lot of issues with classroom management. I think the worst issue is the cell phones, but then I
Oh,
use them. I make them do research on them. I make them join Nearpods with them. And so they're having to use them for class.
oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Yeah, I know modern technology is kind of sometimes gets in the way, but that's very good. That's very clever. That instead of like, okay, everybody, surrender your phones, you're actually integrated into your lesson plans,
Yes.
into the schoolwork. That's very, very smart. So let's see, what else was I going to ask? Oh, so you're having, I understand you're having a like an open house today.
Yes, we have open house tonight. The parents will come and meet the teachers and whatnot.
Yeah, that was the most frightening part to me of teaching, was actually meeting the parents. Um, but do you find that parent involvement with well, specifically with your kids, um, do you feel like it's a benefit, or more of a hindrance when they get involved?
I think it's more of a benefit, to be honest. The parents can be their encouragers, can be supportive. I mean, this year I had a parent ask me if I need anything for the classroom. I meant, do you mean for your child? No, I meant you for the classroom. Do you need anything? I was like, really? But I've also been trying to engage the parents via Remind. Like I ask them a question a week about their student. One week I asked them, tell me something funny or silly that your student did that made you laugh or smile, and since we're working on what's their next thing, and we've been looking at colleges, they've been researching what will it take to live on their own, like what is the cost and whatnot. And I messaged parents through via Remind, and I told them what we were studying. And I said, why don't you share your story of the first place you ever lived in, or when you went to college, or the first job you ever had with your student? I think that would be really cool. And if you want to share it with me too, I'd love to hear that story, So I find if you reach out to the parents on the good things,
Mm-hmm.
they don't mind it when you have to come to them, oh, your child misbehaved in this area or whatever. But I don't find that I have to do that very much. So I haven't done it this month yet, and we're on 6 weeks. I mean, this school year. So I'm happy about that.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, one of our viewers asked a question about AI and in the classroom. Have you had to deal with that, or what do you think about that, about using artificial intelligence for?
Actually, not too long ago, we had a training on AI in using ChatGPT in the classroom and whatnot. And I found, students are going to use it. They are, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of easy to tell when they've used it in their essays. You're going, hey, especially when they don't pay attention to, they don't look at it first before they turn it in. So it's a little easy to tell. And but they're going to use it anyway. So why not use it in a way like making model essays and letting them look at it, and coming up with model questions for them over grammar and sentence structure and so on and so forth. I find if they're going to use it, you might as well utilize it just like I did with technology in their phones in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Renee.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when it comes to AI, I'm really glad that MM Farwell, she's a former teacher as well, by the way. I'm so glad she brought that up, because I've seen a lot of debates with professors and teachers and all kinds of educators, sort of like, disagreeing about what to do about things like Chat GPT. Do you integrate it in? Do you try to see if you can contain it or control it or ban it? And I remember the same thing happening back at the onset of the internet, just generally, and social media. So every time there's a new thing, teachers have to figure out, okay, are we going to leverage this? Are we going to sort of ride that tide, or are we going to try to do something to contain it? And so I'm glad you weighed in there. My guess is going to be it's going to continue to get ever more detailed and nuanced and powerful. So my guess is going to be that to try to boycott it or ban it is probably not going to be a great long-term solution. Right.
That's not a worry. Anytime you try to ban anything, it does not work. People they're going to use it anyway. How do you ban it at home when they're doing their homework? When they're using their phones in the classroom, how do you really ban it? Because you don't have access to their phone. Banning it's not going to work. It's better to be able to utilize it in the most effective way. And I've seen this with almost anything that's been new that's come out totally. And it's like I always tell my students, it's not about teaching you how to memorize. It's about teaching you the skills. Can you research and find this? It's not about filling your heads with knowledge. It's about showing you how you can get that knowledge for yourself.
Right. And I love that this is so timely, because first of all, Dennis Tardon, he said to me before I came on here, he said, look, talk about critical thinking. And it's interesting because my mother, as a professor of psychology, this new semester just started, and that's something she's been talking about a lot. Critical thinking. It's exactly what you said. So I asked my mother about ChatGPT and all that, and she said on the first day of class, she let them know this is not about rote memorization. You know,
Exactly.
you can look up everything. You have access to
Exactly.
Google. So she said, I'm here to teach you how to think and to think critically about different
Exactly.
topics. And she said a lot of students, though, don't like that because it's not as easy for some students who really are just kind of like, just tell me what I got to do. Tell me the right answers, you know, the sort of bean counting, because they just want that easy A or whatever. And so she tells them, you know, drop my class if you don't want to learn how to think, because everything is in the textbook or Google right now. And I can't, you know, I'm not teaching you how to memorize things.
It is definitely about the thinking. And if we can get them at the high school level, hopefully that won't happen as much as the college level. But I remember even
Right.
when
Yeah.
I remember even when I was in college in the education courses. So I was already in my 5th year of college, and Dr. Redazul expecting us to critically think and do research and whatnot. And some students were like, can't you just give me the answers? And I thought, why?
Right. That's what they want. They, you know, because to them it's so much easier, right? If you could just give somebody the answers, but that's not really education. I would argue that's not really the same thing. You know, rote memorization to me is not the same thing as actually thinking.
Exactly. Memorization is not learn. It's like I tell my students, I prefer to give them projects or essays over tests. I do give tests because I have to. All right.
Right.
But I find that projects and essays or even public speaking is more of an assessment of what they've actually learned and how they can apply it rather than rote memorization. Oh, I'm going to memorize it tonight for the test tomorrow and then forget it the next day. Or forget it
Right.
5 minutes after I walked out from the test, kind of thing.
I've done that.
I mean, we
Yeah,
all have at one point or another.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
MM here, she made a comment. It was the same complaints when Gen X had access to handheld calculators. Adults would complain that they didn't have them, it's cheating, lazy learning, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I remember when I was a kid having to memorize the multiplication table and all that. I, I still have trouble with that, and that's just me. I have
Mhm.
trouble with numbers, but yeah, you know, every new technology that comes out, and we talked about this in one of our earlier programs when we just talked specifically about AI, how every
Mhm.
new technology is a threat to the old technology, but it's also sometimes a threat to society in general because all of a sudden now you have to learn something new, and it's going to change the way things were done, you know, whether it's a little handheld calculator or whether it's
Mhm.
chat gpt, or AI or whatever you want to call it. So I think part of what people like Arlene and other educators are doing, or even Renee's mom, is learning, they themselves are learning how to adapt all this new technology and all this new knowledge into their teaching, into expanding that base of information that we have. So, so I think that's
Absolutely.
important.
And I
Yeah.
think that's important too. And I know that, like, when I was in law school, the ABA, the American Bar Association, they have rules. So you have to be able to, you know, do things in a certain way. But a lot of
Right.
so they have to have closed book exams. And then for the bar exam, it has to be closed books. But the thing is like all the professors would always say, when you guys get out into the real world of the practice of law, it's going to be about collaboration and knowing how to get the answer. It's not going to be about closing books. You're going to have all the books, you're going to have all the legal software. And actually, that's a good lawyer. A good lawyer doesn't just sit there memorizing. That's not a great use of your time. So
No,
it's
it's not.
unfortunate that some of those archaic things, you know, are still there. But, you know, of course, an engineer now does have, like Farwell talked about, you know, an engineer now does have access to calculators and all kinds of software. And we want that because then that's how progress happens.
Mhm.
You know, it's not the same thing as like when we watch Leave It to Beaver or whatever, or Lassie, and they're there like studying with like 3 books. No, we're human progress and technological progress and philosophical progress demands that we learn how to think on the fly and think for ourselves and think outside the lines. Shameless promo.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Right.
I did it for
Yeah.
you, Manny. I did it for you.
You're learning. See,
Yes.
learning already here.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, but seriously, yeah. So, I mean, that's why I pointed out at the beginning in my introduction that it's kind of a, from what I've learned, from what I understand, it's kind of a three-step process. You acquire knowledge, however means, either through teaching or being taught by someone like Arlene or Renee's mom. But then you have to retain it. You have to keep that knowledge in your head. But again, that's not enough. But now you have to apply that knowledge. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you know if you're not using it for anything.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's why we learn things, so we can apply that.
They have
and it
these.
doesn't- Oh, no, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, like, they have these competitions of people who can memorize pi, and I think that's great, and it's its own skill, and I understand that's a competitive thing, and so I respect it for what it is. But it's not like those are the best engineers who are going to cure cancer or going to cure. It's like they're just showing off a specific skill that they can memorize a set number of digits. But to me, that's not mathematical genius.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Arlene, I know you have to go here in a little while, but so what was your education like? Now you're an educator, but what was your education like? As
Are you talking about post-secondary or secondary?
well, all of it.
Okay.
I know that's pretty broad, but I was, well, specifically, yeah, post-secondary.
Okay. All right. Actually, I started off in Concordia. It used to be college. Now it's Concordia University, and then I ended up my education at UHV, University of Houston, Victoria. It was very broken up because I had gotten married and started to have children, and life gets in the way. Anyway, sometimes. And so I picked it back up after my divorce to my first husband, and it was a struggle, not because I couldn't keep up, but because I did have children. That's always a struggle. But I loved my education at UHV. I loved my education professors. They were very much into critical thinking. And one of the things that was really stressed on me by Dr. Radazel, I don't even know if he's still at UHV to think about it or not, but he said, and he was an education professor, don't assign homework. If your students cannot manipulate the work inside your classroom, what makes you think they're going to have, one, the time to do it at home, or two, the support to do it at home? Because a lot of times parents, just barely graduated from high school, or, they just don't have the resources, or they're having to work several jobs. So I decided when I was in college, ever before I became a teacher, that I would not assign homework. If they could not do, the only time they have homework is if they did not complete it in class after a couple of days, kind of thing, or they missed class, basically. And even then they can still come to me. I just think that home time should be for home time, mine included. They should be able to spend time with their parents and their friends and their extracurricular activities, go to their jobs, whatever, without having to worry about my work or me overriding them. But I really think that my education, I learned a lot, and I took a lot of what my professors said to heart. I mean, yes, of course, we didn't learn how to do a grade book, some of the stuff that you learn when you're finally become a teacher and have a mentor teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things that you learn on the job.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of things you learn on the job. But I do believe that UHV actually did really prepare me. And one of the things that they were really great at, and they still are, was getting you ready for those teacher certification tests. One of the things that Dr. Radazel said to me, don't give the answer that you would do in real life. Give the textbook answer. which is
There you
the
go.
ideal situation. What would you
Right.
do in the ideal textbook situation? And that was really helpful. And he had us do practice test after practice test. And it's because of that. I mean, I did really well on both my certifications. Now I have, well, all three of mine because of that, because I just kept taking practice test after practice test. And by the time it came, I made like 90s, whatever, because I remembered what he said. Ideal textbook situation, not what you would actually do in the classroom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, some of it you actually do. Don't get me wrong, but it just that was helpful to think like that. I don't know if that makes any sense. It made it. I had to critically think. Okay, this is what I do. What is the ideal? And so that was really beneficial. It took me a while because I did have children. Eventually, I got remarried during that process, and I ended up with 6 children total. And so it was a lot of work, but my husband was really supportive. So, and so were my children. But I really appreciated my education at UHV.
Yeah. No. No. Absolutely. Yeah. UHV is a very good school. I went there. I graduated from there as well. But what about? Have you ever considered moving on to higher education? Have you ever considered?
Yes,
going
I
to
have.
teaching
I
college?
I was getting ready to take the GRE and whatnot because I actually have 12 hours towards my master's already, but you have to take the GRE once you reach there. And then the pandemic happened, and then you couldn't take it anywhere.
Right.
And so now I got to get back into that mode anyway. And I've been slowly returning back to life, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, yeah. We all
So
have
yes,
at one point or another, somehow.
I've
Yeah.
actually thought about it. I've been considering teaching at the college level. It's always been like the next step for me for as long as I can remember. I said one day I'm going to be a college professor. Hopefully, I'll keep to that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And I
And
wanted to say you're a woman after my own heart. Or I'm sorry, Manny, is it okay if I
no,
was just
please.
going to launch off what she said when you talked about homework. That was such a great thing that you talked about, because I remember in middle school, I was always like an activist, and I read all these statistics about how homework actually really can severely punish oppressed groups and demographics that,
Exactly.
don't have access. So basically what homework is doing is it's not like showing the smart kids or the industrious kids. It's showing the kids who have like parents that are really involved, or an income level in their household, or a financial structure in their household that allows them to have uninterrupted internet and a quiet space and all the best technology and access to all of those resources. So I had this whole boycott that I did and all this, but it really was because of what you said. And I think most people don't really think about that. So it was great to see an educator really shed some light on that.
Yeah.
Yes, and plus, you got to grade the homework too.
Well, that too. It does save you that. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, and so that's extra stuff you have to grade with everything else you have to do. And I prefer to see them this way. When they're doing it in the classroom, I can actually walk around. I can answer any questions. I can, demonstrate. I definitely believe in modeling. Like I'll show them how to do something, and then they do it while I'm showing them, and then I say, "Now it's your turn. Let me watch you." Right. And then I say, while you're doing it, I want you to walk me through the steps like you're teaching me something I don't know. Right. And they always do it with a question. And this is next, and okay, now maybe we should do it one more time where you don't have to ask me any questions, and once I feel comfortable that they actually know the skill, then I can leave them to it. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah.
I tell my students, I know they learn by doing, not by telling.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for saying that.
Experience matters.
Experience matters. Exactly. Yeah.
Hands-on. They have to be there in the knit and the grit of it. So in order to effectively learn.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that that's probably the best way to learn is through
Mhm.
experience, through
It's
actually
like
doing.
when you're learning how to drive, right? You don't learn how to drive by taking the written test and knowing all the book knowledge, but that's the first thing you need to know, right?
Mhm.
But that doesn't really teach you how to get behind the wheel. They don't learn how to drive until they actually get in the car while someone else is with them.
Absolutely.
They,
Yeah.
Right.
yes. And so I can tell them things while they're driving, and I taught 6 of my own children to drive. So it's very much like that. They don't learn to drive unless they're actually behind the wheel driving, terrifying as it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just wanted to say, I just wanted to say hello to Mr. A.T. Coffee, and thank you for
Mhm.
joining us.
Mhm.
He's been a guest on the show as well.
Hi, Ellen.
So this weather makes my throat just really dry. Okay, so you do have some ambition of moving on to not moving on, like, but getting uh, finishing your master's, teaching college.
Mhm.
And what about beyond that? Doctorate, maybe? University? Is that a possibility, or would you just stay at the college level?
Well, I've actually considered getting my PhD. What with that after that, I don't know, but I've also considered, I would like to get my master's in English so that I can teach at the college level at least.
Hmm.
But I've also considered getting a degree in psychology and becoming a therapist.
Oh,
So I'm
Oh,
kind
cool.
of
Yeah, very cool.
stuck between the
yeah,
two. I
yeah,
So I don't know. When you work with teenagers for so long, you learn to listen, to
Right.
right, yeah,
actually hear what they're saying. I
right,
don't know if that
right,
makes any sense, but
Well,
yeah, oh yeah,
well,
makes a lot
that
of
gives
sense.
me you being an educator, you're spending so much time with the next generations. What are you seeing in their values, in their sort of emotional makeup? What do you think is going on with youth of today? What are you noticing? Are they very peace loving, or are they kind of more like tribal politically? There's a lot of division right now in the world and in the country. Do you see that with young people, or is that something that us old fogies are sort of imposing onto them? What are you seeing demographically and just their attitudes?
for the most part, they are mostly peace loving. Um, since the pandemic, though, they've had a lot of anxiety and maybe even some
Mm,
depression. But I think most of the world does now because of the pandemic. If
yeah,
you paid attention to any of the CDC reports, especially last year, they were like children, school age children between 5 and 18 years of age, their mental health was severely affected. So they're not as vocal as they once were, which is
right.
kind of sad. Um, Especially since during the pandemic, technology was very important to keep in touch with people because so many of us couldn't physically face to face. And so they're having to come out of that and relearn to use their voice, which is very important. So hopefully, I am helping them to come out of their caves, I guess is a good way to put it,
Hmm.
uh, their solitude. And hopefully, the world will put, specifically the United States, would put more emphasis on mental health, especially
Hmm.
for our young people.
Right, yeah, yeah. Well, you said you've been doing this for what, 21 years, you said?
Yes, I'm on my 21st year in
So to follow
education.
up on what Renee just asked, how much, what is the difference that you
Yeah.
see between when you first started to today as far as young people are concerned?
Most of them have a phone. Uh, all my students have a phone. They are all somehow into it. Usually TikTok is the big thing.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
they're quieter than they once were, uh, less vocal, I guess. There's way more anxiety than there was in the past.
Mhm.
Um, but they're also more empathetic. Probably because they have undergone some travesties, some trauma.
Mhm.
And they're also more friendly and caring about other people that are different than them.
Wow, that's really hopeful. That's really, really inspiring. I love hearing that. And I've heard other people say that too, that this next generation is really empathetic and knows how to connect. They're very social and they're conscious of how other people are feeling all the time and trying to, like, they're do-gooders. And I think that's wonderful. So that really gives me hope for the future of our planet.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. 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 Because you know, and unfortunately, the media, of course, has to play up the negative aspects of things, and it's like, oh, kids are running wild, and kids are doing this, and it's always kids, 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 you know.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of it is just we're filtering at not only because of the media, but just because of our own experiences growing up,
Right.
and how we were when we were that age.
Haven't
But
kids always been running wild?
exactly, there's
That's
there's
what kids
really
do. It's their
nothing
energy
new.
level. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wish I had that.
I
I
wish I
wish I had
had
the
that
energy
exuberance.
now that I had
Sure.
back then.
Hmm.
But what I know today, but yeah, kids have always run wild. I mean, if you read
Hmm.
about, the ancient Romans, or there's always that famous line
Right. Kids
about,
these
yeah,
days.
yeah, exactly. Kids today,
It's been going on since the
and
beginning.
every
Yeah.
generation has to, and of course there's all these jokes about, millennials and Gen X and boomers and all that, like each generation wants to make themselves seem like, we were the great generation, and now these kids suck. And it's not true. I don't think it's true. And Arlene, I'm sure you can say that too, right? That
Yeah.
they're just kids,
Yeah.
and and it's up to us, not just teachers, not just, all of us, it takes a village to
Sure.
uh
Yeah.
to make sure that
Definitely.
the next generation is prepared for life, prepared to take over when we're dead and gone, and to carry that to the next generation, uh,
Yeah.
that comes after them, your grandchildren, great grandchildren, you know.
It's hard to think of my 6-year-old grandson having children right now. Or my 4-year-old granddaughter, or
Oh
my
my gosh, it
or my
happens.
two 2-year-old grandsons. It's like, whoa.
But yeah,
I
they're the ones who are living right now. They're living in the future,
Yes.
right? I mean, this is
Yes.
the future that all
That's
these
right.
science fiction writers wrote about years ago. It's the 21st century, and they're going to be in the middle of it. They're going to be coming of age in the 2030s, the 2040s, and 2050s, and so on and so forth. And who knows what life is going to be like that? Is it going to be a sort of Mad Max
Mm.
post-apocalyptic thing where everybody's battling for resources? Or is it going to be a very, much more brighter sort of Star Trek future?
Mhm.
Uh, but it how that future happens really depends on them, you
Right.
know, and really us up to a point. But we've had our turn.
exactly.
We've
We've
had
had
our
our
chance.
turn. Time's
We've had
up.
our turn. We've had our chance to do
Mhm.
things. And people say, well, how are we going to leave things for the next generation? Well, I mean, the previous generation left things for us, and we try to do some good
Mhm.
with it. Um, may have failed in some respects, but the next generation is going to pick that up. It's going to see, okay, well, this is all the mistakes. This is all the f ups that the previous generation did. Let's try to do better, and generation after that, and generation after that. So who knows? Maybe your great grandchildren or great great grandchildren will be jetting off to the stars, or colonizing
Yeah,
Mars,
absolutely. Yeah.
or whatever. Or they may be beating each other over with clubs. Who knows?
I hope not.
Hopefully not that. You know, we gotta make, we gotta hope for the future. So
Right. Mhm.
I did notice that I think it's MM Farewell was
Yes.
saying in the chat that she had this policy. I assume it's a she. It could be he. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
But they have a
Yes, those are-
policy that no one fails, and unless the only time they do fail is if they refuse to do the work. And I want to say thumbs up to that person, because that's totally my philosophy too. I tell my students at the beginning of the work, if you do all your work, I'll let you redo it, because it's about mastering it. It's not about failing it.
Yes,
Right,
yes, right.
Learning it and mastering it. And if you don't let them redo it, how are they going to learn? They just learned how to fail, right? They need to learn how to actually do that skill. And if you
Right.
don't give them a
How to come
chance,
back from that. Yeah.
if you don't give them a chance to redo it, to remake it, to relearn, how are they going to learn the material? They're not.
Right.
Right. And being a good teacher is helping them to learn the material. I mean, that's what your role is, right? So I
Exactly.
never understood the attitude of some educators of trying to punish students or sort of like, keep them from winning. I always assumed an educator should be pulling and advocating and bringing everybody up. I never
Okay,
understood that.
yeah, I've always advocated against this whole grading system, A, B, C, whatever, Fs. I
I'm
mean,
right
yeah,
there
you
with
gotta have,
you.
you
Right
gotta,
there with you.
yeah,
Yes.
because again, it's I think it almost is really more of a measure of what the teacher's not doing than what the student's not doing. The kid's getting an F, yeah, a lot of it is on them. A lot of it is, you didn't do the work, you didn't put in the time, or whatever. But then to punish them by saying, "Well, you're getting this letter,"
Mhm.
like the scarlet letter
Yeah.
tattooed your, and they take it to heart. It's like, oh, well, okay, I'm
Yeah.
a failure then. But being allowed to say, okay, well, you didn't get it this time. Let's try it again. Let's, and bring that grade up if you're still grading, whatever. So, but yeah, so you would agree you don't really think about that the grading system is fair.
No, but it's what we have, and so it's what I have to live within. And so
Yeah,
the students, I mean, if I could bring about that change, because if we really want them to learn and keep trying, it's the same reason why I don't grade in red. They see the
mhm,
red and they think,
Right.
oh
Yeah.
no, look at everything I did wrong. You
mhm,
know, I use any other color, purple, green, whatever. But
Mhm.
or a lot of times I don't mark their paper. I'll just put it on a sticky note on the back or something, you know, and make suggestions. But what I don't want them to do is see, oh no, I failed. And then they just want to give up. And I want them to keep trying, and I want them to do better, to actually learn the skill, not so much
mhm.
rote memorization, but
Right.
how do we research? How do we write? How do we read and retain, at least comprehend what we read? Things like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Can you bring back that comment from MM?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she says, agreed. An F means they've learned nothing or have an issue that is leaving them incapable of understanding. Which,
Exactly.
in most cases, that's really not the case. It's just, they, what the kids say now, they misunderstood the assignment. They didn't get it. But it's
That's
not.
why if they make an F, I don't put an F or that grade. I will usually have a one-to-one talk with them, and I'll say, okay, this is what this needs. This is, but this is what it's missing. Can we add this? Can we do this? And we'll have a little talk, and I get them to redo the assignment until they've mastered it at least by 80%.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, a lot of what the problem is, and I think that's kind of part of what MM was saying, is that I think we tend to associate those letter grades with a level of intelligence. If you're making all
Yeah.
A's, oh, you must be very smart. If you're making F's,
Sure.
oh, you're dumb. You're stupid or whatever. And that's not the case, really. It's just you failed that particular assignment. It has really nothing to do with how smart you are, how, because You look at people, someone like Einstein, who's considered one of the smartest people to ever live, and yet he was a terrible, terrible student.
Yeah.
Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they dropped out of school.
Right.
They dropped out of college, not because they couldn't do the work, but because they were so far beyond what they were learning. I mean, they already were miles ahead of that. So it's not always about good grades or bad grades. It is about, and like I said, part of education is retaining that knowledge. How much of that have you able to absorb in our little simian brains, and apply that back to whatever the lesson was. So
Yeah, and a lot of really truly creative and brilliant people don't do well with the cookie cutter institutionalized learning style. And a lot of students don't like just sitting in a desk. Also, a lot of students learn more by project-based learning or whatever. There's a lot of variation. And so I think it's great that they're just starting to now have more options. I mean, when I was a kid, I don't remember a lot of options, but I do know that there's some schools out there that are really experimenting with things like that. They even have nature schools, for kids who are outside all the time. But the idea is that, it doesn't, a letter grade in a traditional classroom does not always translate, obviously, into brilliance or creativity or anything like that.
Yeah. So Arlene, what do you think about homeschooling?
Actually, my husband and I, we homeschooled all 6 of our children
Wow.
in lower elementary school while I was attending college, and he was also attending college. I believe homeschooling can be wonderful. It can be beneficial as long as there is, you got a plan, you plan ahead of time, just like any teacher would. We used an actually online curriculum, but we supplemented it as well. We would take, and the other problem a lot of times with homeschooling is there's no socialization. But here in Victoria, they have a homeschool co-op that our kids were part of, and they had things like art, and they learned to play guitar, and they were part of a choir, and they took PE at the YMCA, and we also involved them into other things like dance and karate, and most of their schooling was done by midday at like around 1 o'clock, and we'd take them like out on field trips and whatnot. So I'm a big advocate of homeschooling as long as you're actually educating your child.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of people see it as or some people see it as kind of an either or. Well, I want to homeschool my kids because I don't want them going to public school for whatever reason. And then they don't see, like you said, that you can have both. You can do both.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And some people do just want to exclusively homeschool, and I know people have done that, and everything's fine. How are we doing on time? Are you
About
good?
are you asking me or Arlene? Okay.
I probably need to go in about 1 minute.
That's totally fine, because we only have 7 minutes left in the hour anyways. That's totally fine. I wanted to read this from Dennis Tardon because I thought this was really interesting. Today is, of course, is 9/11. So he wanted us to sort of address that. And he talked about how on the original 9/11 and right in the immediate aftermath, we were all united, and we no longer have that common enemy, he said. So we have to look within, and that's hard work. So we have to unite the tribes. We're not victims. We have to stop acting like it. And we must discern from the reasonable truth and manipulated information and assume goodwill. And that's where education sort of comes in. And I think that's a really great cultural and a historical point. And that's something that Americans have had to deal with in different places around the world. Arlene, do you want to weigh in on that before you go?
I totally like that quote. Who'd you say it came from again?
Dennis Tardon.
I couldn't hear you.
Dennis Tardon.
Oh, the one that had the commercial at the beginning.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, yeah, and I totally buy into that. A lot of people think that we teachers indoctrinate the kids. If that were true, they would be off their cell phones. They'd all make A's. They wouldn't misbehave in the classroom or whatnot. But I think I totally agree with that statement.
Mm-hmm.
The unity after 9/11, we were really unified, and
Right.
now we seem like we're not as much. But I do have hope in the new generation because they're looking towards more unification. So
Me
um,
too.
yeah, but a lot of it does come within ourselves, and if we can't reach out and reach across the aisle, who else is going to? So
Right.
I
Exactly.
love that quote. That's beautiful. Yeah. Who else is going to? It's on us, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, Arlene, thank you
Mhm.
so much for being our guest today. You were very insightful and just wonderful. We learned
thank you
we
for
learned a
having
lot.
me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you
So
for having me. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
yeah. So have a good open house, and hope we'll talk to you later.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you. And I just
All
wanted
right.
to promote a little bit because we have Burn It Down at 9 p.m. Eastern tonight with Tom Cheshire, of course. And then tomorrow it's casual. Yeah, you can. I love that. That is what he does. That's the Tom Cheshire. And
Bucket
then
of fish. Bucket of fish.
bucket of fish, bucket of fish. And then Thursday is like a triple header because we have Big Monster Briefing Room. And then we have No Icing with Sandy D. And she has Dennis Tardon. It's going to be a Dennis Tardon extravaganza for that
Awesome.
hour.
Awesome.
And so everyone wants to tune in for that because it's hilarious. The pre-production that's been going on for that is like hysterical and
I'm sure.
ongoing. I mean, Sandy, me, Dennis, it's just hilarious. So
Oh my
seriously,
God. Oh my God.
and Dennis and I have surprises for Sandy that she doesn't know about, and then Sandy and I have surprises for Dennis that
Oh,
he doesn't know
oh.
about. So there's going to be a lot of fun
If you can,
reactions. We're going to
if
see.
you can sneak me in, I'd like to be on that.
Okay, okay. Shh,
Yeah.
don't tell
Well,
anybody.
certain my old friend Sergeant Havoc is going to
Oh,
be on Big Monster
oh.
Briefing
So
Room this
all
week. We'll be talking about arachnophobia,
you know what? Yeah,
your
and I'm
favorite topic.
terrified. I'm terrified, and I think
Poor Millie, poor
Major
Major
Millie is
Millie.
probably gonna need to change her panties a few times because she's gonna be peeing and shrieking. She's gonna need Roland there to sort of keep her together and give her a massage,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, Havoc has your back.
Yeah, Havoc has. Oh,
You
that's
know,
right.
show me
Yeah.
on the doll
Show me on the doll where the spider tickled you.
where the spiders.
Oh no! I'm already my heart rate is already like pumping because like I'm already terrified. I'm gonna need some help. And then
Yeah.
at 8 o'clock Eastern, directly after that, we go into Journeys with MM Farwell. So it's gonna be boom, 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 like a lot going on this.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thursday it's going to be a packed house.
And we'll keep you in
Wonderful.
mind, Manny. We'll keep you in mind because maybe you can have some tricks up your sleeve as well. That would be
Yeah.
so cool.
Have a little surprise thing in there.
Mhm.
Monday,
Oh, right.
uh,
Thank you.
we well, let me make a little announcement. This is our well, I shouldn't say final episode, but we're going to go on hiatus for a little while to kind of regroup and re-energize and try to, not try, but come up with some more some new and fresh topics on how we humans define ourselves. Also, Monday is the return of two guys and sometimes a gal talking about movies in this very time slot. And our topic is going to be Mr. Tom Cruise. So I urge everyone to stay tuned for
I
that.
love that. I love that.
Yes,
I
yes.
even like the AI Tom Cruise.
Yeah, we're gonna have a deep fake. No,
Deep fake. Surprise,
a deep
everyone.
fake. Look, we have actually
He's gonna jump on the sofa.
on
It's gonna be
jump on
great.
the sofa. Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe we'll jump on Rory. We don't know.
Oh, that would be fantastic to see.
That would be so awesome. Poor Rory. He has
Oh,
no idea.
poor
He
Rory.
has no
Yeah,
idea what he's in for.
that's right. And
He,
David said he'll be dancing in his socks and boxers. We expect it, David. We expect
yes,
it.
I'm
Don't let us
sliding
down.
in, little old time rock and roll.
Absolutely, with the little David,
Yeah,
I can see you doing that. That's very
I,
you.
I I totally see
He's very
David doing
Tom
that.
Cruise in his whole affect. I feel like there's a
He
Tom Cruise in
is.
him.
Yeah, yeah.
Love you, David.
That's right. We love you, David.
Yes.
So anyway, so that's what's coming up on Cosmos Creative Television. So
Absolutely.
please
Yes, and
Good.
Billy Vera, my good friend Billy Vera, he is going to
Olivera.
be giving a cool show down in LA. So everyone check my Facebook page. If you are in LA or the greater LA area, it's like totally worth it to go in there and tell him I said hi.
Right.
Give him a
Yeah.
hug for me.
Yeah. If you're a child of the 80s, I'm sure you
Absolutely.
remember Billy Vera and the Beaters
I love,
and that song
and I know
that you
why they're
couldn't get
called the
out of your
Beaters too.
head for
And I know
days.
why.
What would I do if I could? I mean, it gets stuck in my freaking head for. Anyway,
I know.
I
I
gotta
know. It's
say,
a
poor Billy,
earworm.
I hated him
Oh,
for a
it's all
while
right. He'll
because of that
forgive you.
stupid song. No, it's not stupid, but that song stuck in my head because I
It's just
played it on
too catchy and
rotation.
it's on this rotation.
But
I know.
now,
It's
but
crazy.
now, but now, I have nothing but love.
Open your heart.
I've opened my heart.
You know which Billy song did that to me was Storybook Children.
Oh,
Why can't we be? And like, it just, there was like a 3-week period where that's all that I could, it was, and I was like, Billy, this is all I can hear. Like, I can't hear anything else. Please make it
right,
stop. I was going to go
right.
mad.
Make it
But that's
stop.
good. That's a good songwriter. He knows how
See,
to get
that's
in your head. He knows how
when
to
you
sell the
get those
record.
earworms in there, and
That's
and
That's
they
why
start
he's
laying
best friends.
eggs.
That's why he's best friends. That's creepy. Sergeant Havoc should research that. That's why he's best friends with Priscilla Presley. And I say that every time I mention Billy because it's true. They have a joint birthday party every year
Hmm.
together. And I told him I'm coming, and he said yes. So next year I'm going to be there with Priscilla Presley and Billy Vera. I'm serious. I'm going to
Awesome.
be there. Yeah.
You better.
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna get to
You,
like touch Priscilla. Well, I don't know if I'll touch her. I feel like I just got disinvited.
and
I'm
now
Billy. I didn't mean it. I
and
won't
now
touch
there's
her. I won't touch
and now the lawsuits begin.
her. And now suddenly I've been disinvited
Or that could
and
be a
blocked.
that
I've been
that could be
blocked on
a
all their socials. Yeah.
or that could be the title of your autobiography. I touched Priscilla.
I touched Priscilla, or blocked by the beaters,
Touching Priscilla.
or blocked by the beaters. It
Or
depends. This could go
blocked by
either
the
way now,
beaters.
depending on whether Billy watches this. So.
Yeah. Well, of course he does. I'm sure he does.
He's hilarious.
I'm sure
Billy
he
has the
follows
best
you
sense
everywhere.
of humor. He's hilarious. He's wilder and crazier than I'll ever be. So
Oh
he can
yeah,
take
yeah.
it. You can take it, Billy. You can take it.
That's right.
And she said, "Don't give me no lies and keep your hands
Keep your
to
hands
yourself." Good one, David. Good one, David. Yes, and thank you for this disclaimer. Cosmos does not support unwelcome touching. We do not want to,
That's
especially
right.
not against Mrs. Presley. Mrs. Presley, we do not
That's
touch
right.
her.
Because
We have to be invited. I feel like there's a schedule. If you want to touch her, that she has to wait, and then she invites you.
right,
And I feel like
because
there's a
then
protocol.
you get this. Priscilla, where did Renee touch you? Show me on the doll where Renee.
Show me on the doll where Renee give you unwanted touch. Even this, I feel like, is very sensual.
What you do in the privacy of your own home.
In the privacy of your own Presley home. No.
Presley home.
We
Yeah,
won't do that. We love Priscilla Presley. We love her family.
We love Priscilla.
We wish them all the best. Yes.
We wish them happy birthday whenever that comes up.
Yes.
And Renee will be there.
I will be there, and I will not be touching anyone. I'm going to have my hands behind my back like this. I promise. Or behind my head, something. It's going to be, there'll be no beating. There'll be no beaters. No beatersing. No unwanted touching. We don't do that. We don't do that. That's right. Thank you. MM Farwell is dying. I know, because her sense of humor is just like this. And David too. You guys are hilarious. Okay, we gotta go because I gotta eat and then burn it down.
Oh, that's right. We got.
Oh my god.
Okay.
And I have some playlists to listen to, which I'm gonna be doing when I'm writing later.
Yeah. All right.
This is the king of playlists, everybody. So don't do unwanted harassing of the playlist master. But if you get permission to ask, he might make someone a playlist. You never know.
I might. That's right.
It's just like Priscilla Presley. You have to get an invite.
That's right. Yeah. Don't be touching me inappropriately.
Show me on the playlist.
Show me in the playlist where he touched you.
Oh gosh, I love
Actually, I'm okay with inappropriate touching. It just
okay. You can do it.
But it's circumstantial. It's it depends on the circumstances. So
I think it does too. I'm totally cool with it usually too. I'm Ukrainian, so Ukrainians are always finding a way to touch and kiss someone and touch someone. It's just like our thing.
Right. I'm Hispanic. We're
yes,
hot-blooded.
We have
So,
hot-blooded and very cold-blooded, but together it's a warm blood.
together we make steam.
Yeah. Make a graphic of you and me in a sauna. I think
Oh,
you and
oh
me
my
in a
goodness.
sauna would be a
You and me.
vibe. I feel like that's a vibe, Vanny.
You and me and
Vanna
a
White.
sauna.
Vanna White, God bless her. They're trying to cut her out with the salary. They're telling
I
her
know.
she's not worthy. This is what they did to Suzanne Summers on Three's Company. What the
I
hell?
know. It's
Just
terrible.
come on. Just
You
because
know,
someone has a vagina does not mean that they're not worth as much.
that's
I
right.
don't understand that. What is that?
Quite frankly, I think having a vagina makes you more worth it.
I
More
mean,
worth.
where did the
Makes you
babies
worth
come from?
more.
Thank you. Where did the babies come from, people?
You
Where
know.
do you think those babies come from? Come on.
That's where the gold is.
That's where the gold is. That's where every baby is. I don't understand the problem. I just don't get it.
Where?
And on that note,
Where did
we
this
leave,
go?
we leave you, and the next thing you'll see will be Tom Cheshire in
Tom
Puerto
Cheshire,
Rico, and one
yeah.
day I will learn how to say Puerto Rico.
Well, before we
That day is
go,
not today.
I just want to say one thing to our audience. As one of my favorite fictional characters says, and that's Doctor Who, he said, hate is always foolish, love is always right, and more importantly, be kind. Always be kind. And so, my last word to you is be kind, not just to others, but to yourself, especially to yourself. All right. Well, that's our show for tonight. Thank you for stopping by and watching, and we'll see you on down the road.